Look, thanks for doing this, first of all.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little
Yeah,
nervous, admittedly, but I get nervous anytime I'm the interviewee. So that's
yeah.
the
I'm actually
nature of my game.
I'm strangely relaxed about this one. I think, well, I kind of have a little bit of trepidation, but the majority of me is relaxed because I think we've chatted quite a bit on Instagram and stuff. And then I kind of feel like I know you a little bit as well because I watch your videos and stuff. But then there's also a part of me that's like, shit, like it's almost like meeting someone. I imagine it's like what meeting someone off Tinder is like, where like you get on really well chatting to each other online when it's all messages and you can take your time writing one. But then when you meet in person, it's like, fuck, what if they don't like the real me?
Did you do internet dating at all? Did you ever do any of that?
No, thank God. Jesus, that would not have ended well, I'd say, for
Yeah, I
anyone.
totally missed it. I met my wife analog, and we joke all the time that like I've
Is that her
never
name?
experienced. Yeah, this is my wife analog. Here's our daughter digital. Uh, no, yeah, I think that would be terrifying. But no, you're right. I kind of like um, my move back in the day, like dating my wife, was like any day that we were like early dating, about to go on a date, I would like stop talking to her that day because I was like, we have to have something to talk about. Like if we've stayed up, in touch all day long, then like we show up to dinner and I'm going to be like, well, I know what you've done and you know what I've done. So
Jesus,
let's
Mars must be a bit shit, is it?
no,
You can't really do that now. You can't just like
we've
lock
come a
yourself in
long
your
way.
office and be like, I was just like looking at my wall. What were you up to?
Right.
Uh,
Right. No,
yeah,
we've
no,
come a long way.
mine was more like trying to think of an analogy for it. You know, like in geography in school, where you learned about like slow coastal erosion, where like the waves just or oxbow lakes. Did you do them? Where like
I
the
don't know what that
river,
word means.
there's like a bend in the river, but
Okay.
eventually the river just cuts through the bend. It just finds a quicker way, but it takes
Sure.
years. It just eats away at the earth or whatever. So I
Sure.
feel like that was my introduction to my wife, where it's just like
You ate
she,
away at her.
yeah, like she had no idea that I was interested in her, and I just gradually eroded until I turned her into an oxbow lake and she was trapped.
Dude, when I proposed to my wife, we had never talked about getting married. Like we had never had the conversation. I just like sprung it on her, and she thought it was a joke. So it was not a joke. Uh,
It was a joke.
and
It really got out of hand. I've been
right,
trapped ever since.
right, yeah. 10 years later, like man, this punchline is really taking a long time to kick in.
But she got me back when she got pregnant.
Oh man, no, I love our daughter. If this is a joke, it's the best joke I've ever been a part of. So I'll
It's a
take it.
long one.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Is it Oviedo? Is that where you live?
So technically, I'm in a town called Chuliota, but the greater town is Oviedo, but it is
Oviedo.
spelled like Oviedo. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of like kind of old Florida Native American names for the area.
Is that far from like Miami or any of those kind of areas?
Miami's about like 4 hours south. Um,
I was talking to
yeah,
someone, there's a listener in Texas, and I talk to her kind of regularly enough. And she was like, oh, I can't remember how it came up. I can't remember oh, no, I can't remember what we were talking about. But anyway, it came up, distance came up, and she was like, she lives in El Paso. And she was like, oh, I'm about like 9 hours drive from Dallas, where Chase lives or whatever, or 6 hours drive.
right,
I can't remember
right.
what duration she said, but I was like, oh, yeah, in that time, you'd be able to drive from the East Coast to the West Coast, back to the East Coast, and halfway back to the West Coast of the country that I live in. And it was just like mind blowing when you see like America is just like 4 hours from Miami. When you look at Florida on a map compared to other places, it looks tiny. So
Sure.
it's always just blows my mind when I hear of. I don't even want to think about Australia because fuck that.
Oh,
Um,
no way. Yeah.
what's the coffee scene like there?
In Oviedo or in our
Yeah,
area, we have a lot of Starbucks. And like, so the area that I'm in is more, it's a little more rural. We could be in like downtown Orlando in about 25 minutes. And downtown Orlando has some like really cool coffee shops. Um, but
Aprons
like
and that
out,
kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah, leather aprons and like the little metal clasps and
Man
latte
buns and
art.
yeah.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. You ever seen the show Portlandia?
No, is it good? I've seen like it seems like I like Parks and Rec and The Office and stuff, so I assume it's similar to that, is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. But like season 1 of Portlandia, we joke that like we make the joke about Portlando. Like this is Orlando, but it's kind of Portlando. Like a lot of young retired people is the joke. Like that they're just like in coffee shops working. They're like, what are you doing? You know, like I haven't seen you. Not only are you not working, but I haven't seen you go to the bathroom yet today. So like you can't be caffeinated and you can't be hydrated. So something is awry here. But yeah, there's some cool shops in the area. I've like been a Nitro fan since the first time that I've had like Nitro cold brew. So like I pretty much only target the places where I can just get the intravenous um, foamy nitro straight into my veins.
I was at the games a couple of years ago. Um, every time I say that, I'm like, God, I say that on every fucking episode. But I suppose the guest only hears it like once, so it's fine. But
Right.
they had nitro. There was some local coffee shop, and I looked for. I say I spent about 2 hours the other week looking for them on Instagram, and I just can't remember the name of the shop. But they have a couple of locations in Madison, and they were at the gate of the games. We camped in little site, and they were at
Yeah.
the gate of the games, and they had like nitro cold brew and regular coffee as well. But they used to start at
Right.
like 6 a.m. in the
Right.
morning. But yeah, that was my first time having nitro. It is properly good. You would want to like coffee, like you wouldn't want to be like a frappuccino kind of guy and then be like, fuck it, I'll try nitro. Like
Right.
forget it.
Right.
But
It's
it
gonna
is
turn
nice.
you. It's gonna turn you in a different direction at that
Yeah.
point.
Have you got a favorite coffee memory then? Something that stands out of your travels or your time drinking coffee?
Oh man. I started thinking about that after you mentioned that was kind of one of your go-tos in some of the
Mm.
previous episodes. I think I have too many coffee memories, maybe. Uh, but I think the one that like has the most context for, I guess our conversation. One of my first years at the games was, I guess it would have been 2013, maybe. And it was kind of like right at the peak when CrossFit and was throwing like everything that it could at the games. We're still in Carson at the time, and it had or they had like a private coffee bar set up in the back for staff only. So there was like this publishing office in the bunker in the bottom, and behind it was this like there was like I mean everything like espresso bar. They had 2 staff that they had brought up from Santa Cruz. Like they were running a full-on coffee shop in the basement of this arena. And I have never consumed more coffee in my entire life than that first year at the games. But I try not to fanboy. Like that's been part of my job for a long time, even pre-CrossFit. So I didn't want to be like taking pictures of like the athletes and stuff, like letting people know where I was. But instead, I used my hashtag that year was Games Coffee, and I would take pictures of my coffee
In the
in
background.
order to yeah right like people would be like, is that a blurry Dan Bailey back there? I'm like, it might be. And I've had no water today, only coffee. But no, that's like one of my like I think that's one of my like most CrossFit coffee memories. But like I said, I worked at Starbucks for a little while, so I have too many. uh
the
Too many.
it's mad, like when you're setting up that story, when you're setting up the context, what the fuck happened with CrossFit and the games? Like for them to be essentially hiring a cafe and moving it to where they need it, including staff, and like pumping stuff into it, be like, this is our holy grail, this is everything, to be like, fuck it, you're all fired. That's like, it's mad, like, isn't it? Like, it's fucking crazy. Look, we get on to that later on, but yeah, like have you been on podcasts before, and do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
I listen to a ton of podcasts. um Well, I say a ton. I listen to like 3 podcasts, but I listen to every episode that those 3 put out. Like,
Okay, yeah.
so I take in a lot, but not like it's a narrow stream. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
ox. Would you call it
What are
oxbow
your
like?
three?
I listened to This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn. He's a comedian. He has a spinoff podcast from that one called The King and the Sting. The King and the Sting is like just it's like bullshit for an hour and a half. That's all it is. And then every so often, when one of the guests from one of those two shows come on Rogan,
Okay.
I'll listen to Rogan. But I can only handle Rogan in small doses.
Yeah, he's he's kind of like that annoying uncle or something that, like, you know, you might get chatting to him at Christmas and you're like, oh man, this guy is so fucking like meta. Like he knows, he
Right.
fucking sees into my soul. Like he knows exactly what's going on. And
Right.
then like you go back to your own house and then there's a follow-up meal the next day and you go back and you sit there and think, how the fuck did I listen to this guy yesterday when he, like, if this is the shit he's coming out with now, how did I listen to him yesterday? So yeah, no, I think he's a selective listen, I think.
Sure. I think he's a great interviewer, and I think he's like a really good listener, even considering like the world that he has come from, you know,
Hmm.
like I wouldn't think like, oh, that guy from Fear Factor is a great listener, you know, like like I just, it's not a thing that like makes logical sense. But he I think he's a great listener, and I think he's asked really good questions. But and I think maybe the issue might just be that I don't like his stand up. I think it's just like very
Yeah.
screaming stand up, and he likes to yell and sweat. That's not my cup of tea for stand up. I like that tea for other things, but yelly, sweaty tea. But yeah, so those are my podcasts I listen to. I've been on maybe one or two podcasts before that like friends were starting. Um, Always that like you know, inaugural episode, you know, or like episode 3 where they're like, we've run out of people that we know. You know, like
But
maybe
how much of
Michael
a
will give
compliment
us
is
some.
that? I'm heading for episode 100 and you're coming
Yeah,
on.
dude, it's super cool, man. Like 100 episodes is a big deal. How does that feel?
Yeah, like I think I talked to you about this before where I kind every so often I kind of panic. Like I had it after Christmas where I knew I had Saxon Panchik lined up, uh, like kind of a more or less whenever I wanted him. Like you know, I knew with a couple of days' notice he'd be okay-ish, like kind of.
Sure, sure.
And then I had a panic after Christmas because I was like, fuck, I've no episodes banked. Like usually I have a couple in reserve just in case something happens. If
Right,
Sloan is sick or if something's going on, I'll just be able to, like, fuck it. I need 10 minutes to record the intro, but I'm good to go.
right.
And I realized I had nothing. And then I panicked. I was like, fuck, what do I do now? So I organized way too many in like a really short window. So I was like, okay, this is never going to happen again. So I was like, right, book this guy and this girl and this guy and whatever. And now I have been doing one a week because I was working, but now, well, I'm still working, but I'm working from home, so I've kind of more leeway. So I started doing 2 a week again because we're in lockdown, other places are in lockdown, so I thought it might give a bit of a distraction or whatever. So I think I bought a whiteboard, right? Like one of those, well, similar to your one, except my one's shit and you can't wipe it off. Like no matter
Oh
what,
yeah, dude.
you have to scrub it to get it off.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just, it's awful.
Brake cleaner is the
Yeah, yeah,
trick.
yeah, or like lighter fluid. But
Yeah, it's the same thing.
yeah, I wrote up all the months of the year, and I wrote up the date of every Wednesday because I always release on a Wednesday, and I wrote in the names of people that I knew I was about to interview and where they'd fit in and stuff. And then I got this real guilty feeling where I was like, "Fuck, I'm interviewing Tasia next week, but her episode won't air until mid-March." And I was like, is that really shit? Like, is that going to make, I get this weird social anxiety where I'm like, is this going to make her think that I don't value what she's contributed? And I'm like, yeah, thanks for doing that. I'll release that in a month and a half. And like, I'll kick that one into touch until I really need it or whatever. Whereas obviously that's not the case. But then I was got like, okay, I'll go back to two a week because that'll clear the backlog of episodes that I've somehow created from having a drought. And it'll get me to, you know, put out more content and distract people, give them an hour break or whatever every week, or 2 hours instead of an hour or whatever. So I think 100 episodes kind of snuck up on me because when I did that, I was like, right, mid-April is 100 episodes. So I have fucking loads of time to sort that out. Uh, I had thought I was on the cusp of getting Fraser for episode 100.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, yeah, like we'll talk about that next week. You know, like kind of it was teetering on the edge of like commitment. And then he fucking retired.
Bro.
So I was like, I messaged Matt O'Keefe immediately afterwards. when I saw the thing, and I was like, well, the first line in the message was, well, I have fuck all chance at that interview now. Whereas like loads of other people were messaging me being like, oh, you'll definitely get him now. And I was like, no, the opposite. Like everyone's going to want to talk to him now. Like
Right.
I might not get talked to him until like next May. But yeah, so I've reached out to someone else for that one because I want 100 to be like, you know,
Special.
landmark.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so I think obviously I really want to talk to Matt, but I think Matt is giving the people what they want. Like everyone wants to hear him because he's just the top. Like, so I figured if I can't give the people what they want, I'll give me what I want. So hopefully, I'm not going to say anything in case it doesn't work out. And then the person that is on episode 100 is like, who the fuck is that person he's talking about? But yeah, hopefully I have something lined up. But yeah, I think it kind of snuck up on me. Definitely didn't think I'd get to 100 episodes. Didn't think I'd get to 10. Didn't think I'd get to 100 listeners. Didn't think I'd get to 1,000. Like it is mad. Like it's weird, and it's kind of, I've had people say, oh, you're number 3 or number 4 in the CrossFit podcast realm or whatever. Which it depends who you ask, because obviously there's people who have never heard of mine, but will
Sure.
listen to, like, Talking Elite is obviously up there,
Sure.
and then you've got like Make Pods Great Again is obviously up there, and then Armin's vlog is up there, and he has a couple of podcasts as well. Maybe not as popular as his vlog. And then you've got Craig Ritchie got his vlog as well, and there's others. But then I feel like below that table, there's like a group of us that are kind of like trying and not getting to those heights. But I think those people, like say Talking Elite, immediately had a huge chunk of the market just because of where
Right.
they were coming from. There was no one else doing
Right.
it. And then
Right.
Armin is the only person that was doing what he was doing for a long time. And
Right.
then Craig was the only person, as well as Armin, doing it for a long time. So I think that there's a market share that's like, I think I kind of want to slowly eat into it a little bit. I don't want to take it. I just want to share it.
Sure.
So like,
Sure.
um, yeah, that was a kind of a long answer.
Well, no,
Um,
man, everybody, like I, I'm intrigued by it because of like stuff with max effort, that like I am um like I'm more or less starting out from scratch. The same deal too, like that I've come into at the beginning and I'm like, how many videos am I going to try to make where I feel like I've given it a fair shot before I say like this isn't working, it's time to move on. Um and coming in with that mentality from the beginning is like not ideal.
yeah.
But like the idea of even getting to 100 episodes is mind-blowing to me,
But
even
you
at this
enjoy it
point.
though.
Oh
Like you
man,
said,
that
that
right,
it's your
right.
main creative.
It's amazing. And that was the thing. Like before making the first episode, I was like, how long am I going to do this for? Like I'm coming in with a plan from the beginning to already get out. And after I made a couple, I was like, I love doing this. Like, and I'll keep doing it because I love it until I don't love it anymore.
Yeah, exact same.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's I feel like creatively energized and creatively like renewed after making an episode. Even like some of the low reviewed episodes on YouTube, I'm still like, well, they're all like low reviewed, but like I'm still very proud of those things and feel like proud of the effort that I put into them.
It would, just in case people don't know, see, this is Max Effort Reviews, that your YouTube page that you started.
Right.
Funnily enough, actually, there's a there's a pre-workout called Max Effort, and if you type in Max Effort Review without the S,
Oh yeah,
like
it's
5
right to
videos
their
of
thing.
this pre-workout come up. Because I,
Right.
like, the other day I was like, he hardly started, because I was like flicking through episodes and I was like, he hardly started with a review of Max Effort pre-workout. And like, 'cause I was
No.
looking at all these Max Effort
Right.
review.
Right.
Um, how do you find the process of doing it now? Like, if you started off as that kind of, like, I'll do it and see what happens. Like, how you've got like 7, 8 episodes out now, like
Yeah.
4 or 5 of the specific review ones, I guess, and then a couple of other ones. How are
Right.
you finding doing it now?
I I have more ideas than I do time now. I like because like I do still work. I mean, for myself, I say full time, but it's well and above what would be considered like full time, which is great. But like it's a side hustle, you know, at the same
Mm.
time. It's something that I enjoy in addition to the work that I do, but it is also like exactly the same as the work that I do. You know, I don't like make shoes for a living and then do plumbing on the side. Like I make videos for work and then I make videos for fun. But like I find myself now like coming up with ideas for it more and more and having like long notes, you know, like I'm a big notepad app guy. So just like endless ideas for it where now I find myself thinking like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Similar to what you're talking about, where I go from like this week, I had a video lined up that I was getting ready to do, and it I was supposed to review this like massage gun, and I broke it. Uh, so like it's 100% user error, but I was like, that was the video for the week. And then I had to like, hey guys, I'm sorry, user error. Can you please send me another one because I'm an idiot and broke your massage gun. Um, so it's the same deal where now I'm like, oh shit, what do I do this week? You know, like what happens now? Do I just shift back a week? Because I would love to do an episode a week, and that's my goal every week. But it just it doesn't always work. And but when it doesn't, I just try to backlog ideas to try to keep up for the
Yeah.
next coming weeks.
You should have recorded this and done a review of being an interviewee, just a close up of your
Yeah,
own face for the entire
right.
time. I would loads of
Well,
like
who's to say
quick
I'm not?
edits.
Right.
I
A lot
I
of
think
little beeps.
yeah, the thing I like I love the tag where it's like heavy is relative and we're trying to normalize trying something new. I think that's something that definitely resonates with me. I think like way too often people are afraid to, you know, like step out of line or, you know, do anything different. Like I don't know how many times I've heard of people saying other people have said, oh, like I want to get fit before I join the gym,
Right.
or, you know,
Right.
which I suppose the empathetic side of me is like, yeah, okay, nobody wants to feel self conscious or fall on their
Sure.
face or whatever. But I mean,
Sure.
the rest of me just thinks fucking nobody gives a shit, get on with it.
Right.
I think like if we go back further than your YouTube, like where did your interest in videography stem from?
So when I was little, my dad had a VHS like camcorder, you know, like one of the very first like huge ones. And he would, I don't know where he learned it, but we did this thing growing up that he called or I guess my siblings and I called movie magic, where he would like film it, like connect the camera to the
Oh yeah.
TV and then like film us for a second and then have us move and film the empty room and then play it back that we like disappeared. And I mean, that was from like some of my earliest memories are us doing that in our living room. And so I think for me, it started there. Like it was a way to have fun with my family and just kind of goof around even as kids. I thought it was the coolest thing, you know, just like we
It sounds like
disappeared.
what do you call it? Like the plot for the Goldbergs.
I haven't seen the Goldbergs.
Oh, it's like, oh, what the fuck is his name? Adam Goldberg. He's like a producer, I think now in, you know, he's produced movies and TV shows and stuff. But it's like a sitcom based around his childhood or stories from his childhood where he used to go around recording everything on video. And so you've got the episode is on, and then when the credits are rolling, you see the actual video, like the home
Oh,
movie
that's
footage.
cool.
Yeah, now it's definitely embellished, like, but it's still it's a grand. It's kind of like the Big Bang Theory. You just kind of put it on in the background, and you're not
Right.
like, "Ooh, what's going to happen this week?" You just kind
Right.
of look up from your phone every so often when it's on. But
Right.
yeah, you studied film then
I
in
did.
college. Did that like tarnish it at all for you? Like when it started to become less of a hobby and more of like a, you know, more pressure added to it, I guess.
Yeah. I like school and teachers in a lot of ways tarnished like film for me. Like, and that sucks. That's terrible. But like, you know, I was coming through school studying big budget film right during the like the big writer's strike in 2000 and what would that be, 2008.
Mm.
Um and our teachers were just grumpy, you know, like we had a lot of teachers um who like I think had been working professionals in the field and then were losing their jobs because there was no writers to write. And so they were coming back to teach the things that they'd been doing in the field, which in theory is very cool. You know, like they had like very modern hands-on experience, but they would just like, man, we had a teacher one day that stood up in front of the class and was like, half of you will never make it in this industry. And I was like,
Yeah,
why the fuck am I here?
Look at the person on your left.
Right. He'll be dead tomorrow. And he has a cocaine addiction.
He's going to be turning tricks on the court.
Right. Oh man. Yeah. So that was a bummer. But at the same time, there was some really cool things that would happen in school that would like remind you that like why you were there. Like we were studying color correction one day. And our teacher wanted to use the movie Seven for like the example of like how they use greens in the shadows or whatever. And I had never seen Seven. So he was like, all right, I'm going to play, we're going to watch the end of Seven here just to like talk about the color. And I was like, oh, I've never seen this. And my entire row of the class was like, fucking get out of the classroom. They're like, you've never seen it. Get out of here. They're like, leave the room, stand at the door. When it's over, we'll wave you back in. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like it's for a class. And they were like, you seeing Seven is more important than anything we're going to do in this classroom today. So I went and stood in the hallway. And when they were done showing it, I came back in and they made me promise to go like buy the DVD that night. And I went and bought Seven and watched Seven that night. So like there were moments of like the, you know, like the creative, like overwhelming, like let's dive into this thing that we all come alive with, so much so that like you're willing to fail a test so that you got to experience Seven, you know, like trying to put the words to it, like giving you a chance to fall in love with the thing that brought you to school, like all over again, mixed with teachers telling you that you would never make it in the industry and that you should probably quit and go work at Kmart. That's what they said. I don't even know that there were Kmarts. Do you know what a Kmart is?
It's just like a supermarket, basically, isn't it?
It's like a beat ass Walmart. Like it is like a step below. And they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I did arts. Do you have arts degrees, like Bachelor of Arts in the US? I don't want to offend anyone that's done an arts degree, but it's essentially shit. Like it's basically like, I couldn't really decide what to do, so I'm going to do this and then hopefully do teaching or hopefully do whatever. Like, so I was even like, I'm in no position to judge anyone who has an arts degree because I didn't even get one. I lasted like 3 months. But I came from college. I came from boarding school to college where I was like, oh shit, we don't have to go. Like no one's gonna come and wake me. I don't have to go down and like eat breakfast.
No one's gonna shake my bunk bed.
Yeah. So I just didn't go. But I did like TV. I'm trying to remember the name of the course. It was like, oh my god, in hindsight, it was like TV, film, and radio production or something was the name of the course.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those, like, you know, there was like 5 people on the course. 3 of them were unemployed, recently unemployed. Like 2 of them were, you know, dropouts, whatever.
One of them's on work release from prison.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked it. I think the reason I asked you that was I did a tarnish it a bit because like I liked certain parts of it. Like I liked when they were like, right, here's a camera. You three and you three and you three or whatever, like go and make something that's 6 minutes long or whatever. I like that. And I like, you know, like, oh, what if we did this and what if we did that? And I liked editing it and stuff.
Right.
But like fucking writing down all your ideas and like drawing pictures of every fucking frame that you made, like all that kind of, and like right here, we're going to watch 5 minutes of this movie like 45 times so that we can, why did they get them to say that or do this or whatever? And it's like, I don't fucking care, man. Just give just. So I think that kind of tarnished it for me a little bit.
Right.
But now in hindsight, now looking back, I'm like, fuck, I always had that kind of creative thing. I just didn't have an outlet for it. I didn't have like a way to kind of get it out. And there was kind of, you know, when I was preparing for this interview, I was kind of like thinking about you in college, and then I was like, God, I did, like, obviously not similar because yours is an actual degree, like mine was like a napkin.
Well, actual degree.
But
loose quotes, it's barely a college.
My I think I was kind of like, God, in hindsight now, if I knew than what I know now of like, oh, all you need is a way to just get your shit out there. And like
Right.
now, obviously, it's great that you have YouTube and I have a podcast, and I
Right.
send an email every week or whatever. And it's just that state of flow that could just, I'm sure you're the same when you're looking at your editing suite where you're like, an hour or 2 hours goes by and you're just like, shit, I didn't even, it felt like 5 minutes.
Right.
But
Right.
I think I definitely think I'd do more of it now if I had it. But the fucking price of editing equipment is
Right.
insane. Like I use
Right.
Apple iMovie to do mine,
Sure.
and I saw, I can't remember your man's name, BC Vision or something, I think is his
Yeah.
username.
Yeah. He's
He put
good,
up
dude.
he put up a picture last week. He's doing all proven stuff. And
Okay.
he put up a story last week of a video he was editing, and it was like, you know,
Just his
like the
timeline.
like the tracks in the timeline.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, I'd say about 65 of them, and like
Yeah.
tiny little bits, everything. All I was like, yeah, I'm pretty happy when my credits line up properly
Right.
on.
Right. Nah, dude,
Insane,
he's
like.
so good. He's so good. Every time I see those things, I'm like, man, should I have taller timelines? Like, should I be making taller timelines? But no, dude, it's funny that you say that about um, like kind of almost getting like the piss taken out of you creatively. Like there were parts of school, like our final project, we shot on a 35 millimeter, like we shot like a
Mm.
movie. But I'm apparently a huge fan of loose quotes today. So I'll just keep doing this. But we had to like storyboard and have it all approved. Like we had to draw every shot, every frame, make notes of what the camera was going to do. And by the time we got to like shoot, it just felt so sterile. Like it felt like it had lost all of the like, like the kind of like the gritty things that make you fall in love
Mm.
with filmmaking, or like just like you're saying, like go kick around making a video with your buddies. And I was like, I don't want to work this way. Like
I
I
suppose
don't.
it's a real good lesson for what it's actually going to be like when you have
Right,
a
right,
producer and a movie company or a TV
right.
station or whatever behind you.
Right. But like, I mean, I've gone back and spoken at the school several times now, just to like some of
You're
the
not going to
classes.
make it. You're going to be working at
Right,
a
right,
Kmart.
right. Look to your left. Like, but man, every time I tell them that like the movie Jackass changed my entire life. Like I watched Jackass and I was like, man, these are like a bunch of dumb guys that are having fun. And then in the behind the scenes, they were like, we had to learn how to make a movie so that we could show the world this dumb stuff that we did with our friends. And I remember thinking like, man, if they can do that, I can too. Like I can find a way for it to be fun and to like, express myself creatively and enjoy it. And it doesn't have to be this like endless slog of like, here's the frame, my teacher signs off on it. Like, here's a frame, my teacher signs off on it. Like, man, by the end of that, I was like, I got a science degree, like the science of film sort of thing. And I was like, man, I don't want a fucking science degree. Like, let me, put me outside and tell me I'm an artist and we'll call it a day.
You started CrossFit then in 2011.
Right.
At what point did owning an affiliate become either something that you wanted to do or something that you thought was a realistic possibility to do?
So it never crossed my mind, truthfully. Like, I started CrossFit in 2011. Well, you know what? Like, I technically started working out like a year and a half before that, just in my backyard. Like, I wanted to propose to my wife. I wanted to spring it on her and have her have no idea what was coming. And all that I was doing at the time was like, I would I would walk to like a corner store and buy a huge pack of like sour gummy worms and a 40 of whatever like the cheapest beer at the gas station was, and I would play Halo with my buddies till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. uh
What a
and I would
catch.
drink beer, drink beer and eat candy. And I was like, man, if I'm going to get married, I need to turn some of this around. And so like backyard CrossFit was a means of me trying to introduce some discipline into my life. So
And did you
like
just come across it did you just come across the .com site online or?
no, I had friends that were like doing it, and they were like, it was like, early days when it was largely like tire flips and, like adventure race style workouts like every day. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to, like, they're playing, they're not like in a fluorescent lit gym, just kind of like making their way through a thing. I actually went to a CrossFit affiliate for the first time in 2011, the week that we got back from our honeymoon. And I only even like remotely became interested in starting an affiliate after I took my level 1. And like taking the level 1, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then some people that came with me were like, we're going to open a gym. Would you help us? And at that point I was like, similar to what we were talking about before, it was kind of like one foot out the door before I even started. Like, okay, like I'll give it 3 months and see how I feel, or like, I want to get to where the gym is like breaking even financially. And then I'll consider like if I'm still having a good time. But man, it'll be 9 years this year, and like our gym is I get emotional thinking about it, dude. Our gym is our family, like, we moved away briefly to South Carolina and moved back because we just missed it too much, like we missed our people. So it went from being a thing with like one foot out the door to now I don't know like what we do without it.
Yeah. When were you filming a level 1 at the weekend? Just gone.
This one, yeah. I was in South Carolina actually shooting a level 1.
Is that weird? Like to think back that you wouldn't be where, you know what I mean? Like that is, it's a weird marriage of like two things that you kind of, I guess, I suppose film was something you were always passionate about, but CrossFit you kind of inadvertently became passionate about, and the two things
Right.
marry together. Like
Right.
at what point did making CrossFit content start?
So in at the end of 2011, CrossFit posted like it was a contest, I guess, which really was like not a contest. It was like who makes videos within CrossFit. It was essentially a way to ask that question, but posed as a contest. So I filmed at like 2 or 3 gyms in our area, submitted my video. And then the first phone call I got back was from Rory McKernan, like, will you please move to California? Like, would like to offer you a job. And I was like, wow, did I win? Did I lose? Like what just happened here? But we essentially walked it back to not moving, but they put me through my level 1. And that's kind of where like contracting for them began. So it was an interesting marriage, man. Like I enjoyed working out. It was fun. And I was making at the time just like super dark death metal videos like that and weddings, the combination of those two things. So it would be like Saturday night in a metal like shop filming like, fucking death metal. And then Sunday morning having to like delete the card to be like, oh my God, that dress is beautiful. Like, and to slowly transition from that into just almost all CrossFit. It was really cool. Did I answer the question? How that marriage started?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like your list of CrossFit content that you've created is fairly impressive. Like Olgar Froning, all the fittest documentaries, basically.
Right.
And whatever, I assume this year is going to be like, I don't know, Fraser with a 5 in it or something. I don't know what they're going to call it.
Yeah. How do you pronounce that word? Go ahead and take a crack at pronouncing FRA 5ER.
Fraser.
I've been saying Friver. Friver. Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't heard anybody say it out loud.
Sounds like a driver that has 5 cars.
Right.
What's your role been on those?
So for almost all of the last 4 years, I guess, I have been largely attached to just the behind the scenes content. So I don't know what year. I guess that started 2016.
Is that like maybe what Savan would have done?
Yes. So even at the same time, Savan was like doing his project simultaneously.
Okay.
But my role was Heber and I he would choose either the male individuals or the female individuals and then attach me to the other. So like I was with the individual men for most of those years. And my job essentially, I joke about being like an embed, like a military, like a correspondent sort of thing, that like I'm not their like an individual CrossFit Games athlete, but it was my job to like follow their schedule to a T, so that like if they were somewhere, I was there, walking back and forth to competition, asking questions. And then for most of it, I said that I would like talk shit professionally, like I would kind of like, let's stir up something that they can talk about. And I don't mean like The Bachelor, like I think he cheated on you, but like, to like see if I could, like one year, for instance, and I've tried to put this in max effort videos several times and I can't figure out how to do it. Travis Mayer and I created a pretend warm up pre-event that he would do to see if we could get any of the rookies to jump in on it. And so I would just casually film Travis doing, I can't remember what it was, something ridiculous, like he's hanging from the bar, swinging around, like legs in the air sort of thing. And I was like, but you got to take it seriously. It's got to look serious. And he would do it and then hop down and we would just kind of sit back and wait and see if like some of the first timers would do it, dude. And it happened. It slowly caught its way on around the room. And so that was kind of my job, just like equal bits shit talking, but also building like rapport enough that when they were ready to like have some raw emotions and raw feelings, that they were used to me being there to talk about that stuff.
Is there anyone that like, I think I had Heber and Marsden on before, and like obviously they're so involved, it's difficult.
Right.
And like you're still involved as well, so I suppose you kind of don't want to burn any bridges. But is there anyone that like you approached that afterwards you were like, fuck, I shouldn't have gone near that person, I won't do that again? Or is everyone, because obviously like it's adrenaline is pumping when they're coming off, especially if they've done really well or if they've fucked up. Like you maybe might be more worried about approaching them if the latter happens. But is there any, has there been occasions where you've been like, had your camera in your hand and be like, I can't do it, I can't walk over there?
Absolutely. I won't name names, but like I've had before, like so like when CrossFit was like partnering with CBS would give us directives. So they would say like, hey, so and so is in a close race, we need interviews with those two people. And so I went, doing my job, and like, hey, I need an interview. Can I talk to you about how you think the weekend's going to go in your race with this individual? And they were like, no, I will not speak to you till the weekend is over. And I was like, okay, like, what do I tell CBS? Like that you said no. And they were like, when I qualify, when I win, we'll talk. I was like, okay, the end. But like speaking of Fraser, like I've had it happen with Fraser because he is like,
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but the way you were, just the way that those two stories linked, you were like, I'm not going to name names. And then after you told the story, you were like, speaking of Fraser.
No, that individual was not Matt Fraser. I promise you that. But like Matt is very emotional, and I don't know if like sometimes that in competition it doesn't come across that way. But he's very guarded in his interviews because of how emotional he is, and he wants to like stay in a very like strong headspace to be able to do what he has to do when he gets there. So there were definitely times where I would ask a question to Matt, and the answer would be like so short that I would realize from that interaction, like this is not the time or place. And it's my job, I feel like, to read those interactions and know when to push and when to walk away, like, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. And so sometimes it's like, I'm not going to hold them. I'm just going to fold them and let Heber and Mars and like Heber and Mars would always do a follow-up, like the day after the games. They would schedule a whole
talking
day
head kind of thing. Like,
and just do talking heads. And so like this year, for instance, I took notes of a lot of the moments where like this was a very emotional year for a lot of the athletes. And there was a lot of like very visible emotions. Athletes were crying and I was crying. And I just took notes and sent them to those guys to like, hey, this happened. And I think it'd be better to follow up after the fact. So like some of it comes with maturity of just kind of knowing like when to shut up. And some of it is just kind of taking a crack with like, maybe if Justin Medeiros will talk about that and so will overhear Justin Medeiros talking about it, then they'll be open to talking about it. Or to like let Josh Bridges announce that his legs feel fantastic and then turn quickly to a young Matt Fraser and ask if his legs also feel fantastic. Like there's some gamesmanship in it, as well as like some just general humility and acknowledging that they are competing, and they're not like hamsters in a wheel, that like they get to be people too, and we can give them the room to be people.
Like, I suppose famously in 2019, then CrossFit just decided, like, right, fuck it, we'll just fire everyone. And in, like, obviously I'm only hearing this from the, what would you call it, like the firees side. Like, I've only
Sure.
ever heard, say, Heber Morrison, you, and Rory and people. I've only ever heard those kind of people talk about it. But it totally like what when it happened, or like were you in the first batch? Because I know, like, say even Sean and uh Tommy had kind of less warning than Sean had, and Sean kind of
Sure.
knew that it was probably coming. And I actually, interestingly, I don't know if you've heard Savan and Josh and Matt's podcast, but he was actually
Oh, I
talking about
haven't. I've been wanting to listen to it.
man, it's so good. Like, you're talking about, uh, just for anyone listening, obviously this one's better. It's not there.
Yeah,
It's
definitely don't
gold.
leave this podcast and listen
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the other one.
But like, it's so good. Like, so, like, Savan kind of annoys me a little bit. Like, he says some stuff, and then kind of, I don't know, he's kind of talking out of two sides of his mouth sometimes, I think by accident. Like, he has this whole thing going on with Katrin now, with that like New York Times thing, where he keeps telling everyone that he's not pissed off about it, but that he won't shut the fuck up about it. So I don't know,
I
it's
don't know
kind
that
of,
I've seen that.
oh man, like, I don't know. Go listen to any episode and he'll talk
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
In in one episode, he, in the most recent episode, I think, he talks about it and prefaces it to Matt by saying, like, "Oh, I'm going to tell that," and Matt goes, "I'm going for a piss," and he stands up and walks off because he's like, "I'm not listening to this again." But like, it's funny when you're talking about Matt with his emotion. Like, he's so I don't know, like, vulnerable isn't the right word, but he's so much more open than you expect when
Right.
he's talking to those two. I think
Right.
it's because he respects Josh as a, I guess, a fellow player of the game, and then he has a good relationship with Savan from all the years of being raw and open with him in front of a
Right.
camera or whatever.
Right.
But I think he knows he wouldn't fuck him over as well, which is probably
Sure.
important. But
Sure.
Savan was talking about the other day, they were talking about when the media team was let go, and he said that he was asked to fire. They were like, you got to fire half your media team, and he was like, well, okay. Did he fire you, or were you fired in the second batch where he wasn't allowed to fire people?
I think I was the second or third batch, because like I work remote, and I've been remote for
Yeah.
CrossFit the whole time. So, um, like I heard when the first batch happened, and a lot of my coworkers in the first batch were like texting me like, "Hey, did you get let go today too?" And I was like, "No, like maybe I will tomorrow." And honestly, that's how it felt for several months, was maybe I will tomorrow. And
Do you think
so
they
I think,
forgot about you because you were off site?
yeah, probably. It's like, what do you do here?
Yeah.
Like,
Who's this payroll number on the bottom of
right, right, right. Um, but by the time that it happened, I kind of knew it was coming.
Mm.
Um, which, interestingly enough, like I went to a job interview the week before I was laid off, because like the environment was just so weird at the time,
Mm.
that like, we're talking about how you can like lose the love for the thing that you're making if you like put too many boundaries around it. And it kind of started to feel that way, that like it had gone from being able to essentially play and get to point a spotlight at like the coolest things the CrossFit community was doing, to doing almost nothing, like, and I'm not okay with that. Like, I'm not the person who can like,
Do
okay,
you mean
I'm
like
receiving.
your hands were tied, as in it was like, we're not doing these projects, so you can just
Yeah.
relax for a while?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I I just started taking like animation courses. I was like, hopefully when we return to work again, like I will have a new skill that I can put
Mm.
towards my role in this team.
Do you think you were
Um,
protected from it a little bit by not being like there, geographically there?
yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, like I think there probably is something to what you're saying of them being like, oh, who's this guy? You know, like, why are we making a payment to Chulu Oda? You know, like, so yeah, maybe.
But even emotionally protected, like, do you think you were maybe, you think of like Sean and Tommy and Heber Marsden who were on site, who
Right.
like moved there and
Yeah.
were, you know, there every day of the week. Like I
Right.
remember Sean and Tommy telling me how they snuck back in to use the gym a bit and stuff.
Right.
Like, you
Right.
know, they were emotionally and physically invested in
Right.
the physical building and the people and the team they were with. Whereas obviously you were close to people that worked there and you chat to people that worked there a lot, but maybe because it kind of almost seemed like uh, a different part of the world, that maybe you were
Sure.
emotionally better able to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did cry in my front yard afterwards, so I'm not like totally emotionally removed from it. But like, um, I
Jesus, imagine what you would have done if you were actually there.
oh right. Well, it was funny. I was on our roof taking down our Christmas lights when the phone rang from HR, and it was like, "Hey, Michael, this is CrossFit HR," and I was like, "Maybe I should get off the roof." And she was like, "Yeah, that might be a good idea." Not that my roof's not like 10 foot tall, so I would have survived that fall.
When they ring you, then are they like, do you have to sign like an NDA or no, an NDA, yeah, NDA, or do you have to? Do they just say, because like if everyone knows by that point, everyone knows it's coming. So when they ring, are they like, I'm sure you know why we're ringing,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like are
that's
they
exactly
still
what it
kind
was like.
of weird about it?
No, I mean, I often joke that I've signed so many non-disclosures that I don't know which one I can disclose I signed. So like, it was the phone rang from HR. It was an unknown number, but it was like either like a California or Arizona zip code, and I was like, all right, this certainly isn't to promote me. Like it certainly isn't a promotion phone call.
Yeah, we've made
Um,
room on the media team to just
right.
have you.
We have some office space available. But no, man, I think you're right. Like I have, like, thankfully, because of our gym and because of our, like our friendships and stuff in the area, been able to, be grounded in what our life is like here, or in what our life was like here.
Mm,
So that like when I was laid off, I wasn't suddenly in a place that I had moved to for a thing.
yeah, yeah.
Like we still had our life here, and we still had our gym that was like still open, like that. I knew that there were other opportunities, that it wasn't like I was not just laid off, but then had my entire daily routine and gym pulled out from underneath me. And that was really hard, really super hard on a lot of those people that were dealing with that. And what can I do from here? Just
Mm.
like text them and check on them and make sure they're okay, and feel terrible for them. But like I at the same time, like I I had never been more thankful to be like removed geographically, just to know that like, I mean, dude, you're going through this now. Like you have a teething baby. When our daughter was teething, I remember having to like rush to like the grocery store at nighttime to buy like children's Tylenol or something, and walking in the grocery store and being like, "Do these people not know what it's like in my house right now?" Like they're just like, "You're buying ice cream? How are you buying ice cream?" Uh, and it was kind of like that. It was kind of like the baby was teething at CrossFit, and like I could go to the grocery store, to like get what I needed, and then kind of like take a moment to not be,
Mm.
overwhelmed by some tiny knives coming through my toddler's gums.
Uh, you're. We mentioned that you were filming level one and you're involved in this year's documentary. So are you, like, are they outsourcing to, like, how does that happen where they go back? Like, it must be an awkward phone call to be like, hey, we know we've fired you before, but any chance you'll do this film for us?
No way, man. You ever watch the Mighty Ducks?
Yeah.
So you remember in D2, pre-Junior Olympic Goodwill Games, when they're like they're on their rollerblades and they have like those little duck calls, like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the team is like, oh, what? It was like that,
Yeah.
like as soon as we got to start making content again, it was like, hey, you want to make a video? You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I do. Like, and it's um like this past year at the games was, it was really emotional for me. Oh man, like we sat and watched the review video at the very end, and I had to like walk out of the room, and, like cried my eyes out. Like we had this like, like, man, we'd all been laid off the year prior. We'd gone so long without seeing each other, where we used to see each other like monthly.
Mm.
And then here we are, like a year where we're like, are the games going to happen? Like, will we ever see each other again? Like, how hard is this pandemic going to rage? And then we're able to like finally have the games. We all get tested like 5-6 times. And then we did it, and we all kind of fell back into our roles and got to bring the things that we had learned, in recent years along the way. And it was special. Like I'm a very emotional person, and it's probably a little weird to like say that you like sobbed after watching like the highlight review video of the CrossFit games, but it got me. It really got me to get to kind of be back together with all our people again.
Yeah, you and Shane almost get on well.
Yeah,
Just
dude.
like sobbing uncontrollably in the corner together.
Oh man, I've cried with Shane more time. Even at this year's games, I asked him something and I was like, he answered and I was like, Shane, I'm going to start crying. We both have masks on, right? And he was like, not now. Like, because he was like, I will too, not now. We're both sympathy criers. So I had to walk away and leave him alone because neither of us wanted to cry. But no, I love Shane.
How are you approached for this year then? Who reached out, or who was in charge of the whole thing, I guess?
It's interesting because there's different teams. Like there is a team that handles most of what happens on social, and there's a team of who handles the broadcast, like the broadcast end, and there's a team that was handling like the Buttery Bros, like auxiliary team. So the Buttery Bros kind of had their own crew, and then I was brought in by my old boss, Tyson Oldroyd, to basically be like, you're going to help us capture content, but you're supporting what the Buttery Bros are doing at the same time. So, they had their conversations with Heber and Mars, and then worked all that stuff out so that I would kind of take cues from them throughout the day, but then also kind of have folks from CrossFit being like, hey, we also need XYZ, that I could like pop over and do those things simultaneously.
Yeah, it's interesting. They seem to have been given a lot of leeway. Like the Buttery Bros seem to have been kind of just said like, yeah, you can just do whatever you want, and then we'll kind of work around you a little bit and try and get what we need.
Sure.
Was there any trepidation at all about getting involved again? Was there any like, oh, I've been burned before, I don't know if I want to dip my toe back in?
I thought about that like towards the very beginning. Like it's easy to be like super salty right after you're laid off, right? Like they kicked me out and I'm done. But like the people who were part of wanting to like bring me back in to have me do stuff were people that I had loved, and had gotten along really well with. And it didn't feel like saying no would have spited CrossFit. It felt like saying no would have spited my friends.
Yeah.
And then like, I was an employee of CrossFit, like I didn't take that lightly, and I didn't make that my like personal identity, but like I felt like I was in a role for a while that I got to serve the CrossFit community. And so like getting to be able to feel like I was doing that again, like as an affiliate owner, as someone who's been a part of the community for a while, I jumped at it. Like I was like, is the check gonna cash? Like you guys just laid me off. But as soon as I realized that the check would cash, then it, I was really happy to be back a part of what we were doing and get to tell those stories again.
When you're actually there, like in the aromas, is it weird? Obviously, there's a lot going on. So, like you mentioned there, that you got the team back, and there's all that kind of weirdness. But like, was it easier to do your job when it was like, oh, cool, I've only got to focus on 5 people, and then 5 people over there?
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I had some people saying that it was like even at the level 1 over the weekend, some people were talking about it, and I'm never like, oh, I was there and here's what I was doing. So I just kind of listened. And they were like, yeah, it's weird. There's only 5 people. There wasn't enough, they wanted more heats. They wanted like more things to watch. And I'm like, well, from my perspective, it was great. Like I chased 5 people, and it was never like, the previous year where there's like 150 athletes or whatever on the floor at a time, where the first day you're like scrambling because you're like, who's going to make the first, who will make the first cut? We need to get the interview with the guy from Afghanistan before like maybe he leaves. And, which was super cool, meeting somebody from Afghanistan. But, yeah, to get down to just 5 and then to like have the rapport built with those 5 throughout the whole week that, like I was, sorry, I'm like trying not to burp on my microphone here. That like by the time, like Haley Adams crosses the finish line and she's like sobbing, like I'm also sobbing, and like we're comfortable being there with each other at the same time. So it like, I loved it. I'm not saying I want every games to go down to just 5 people, because I think that would be a little anticlimactic, but no, for what it was this past year, it was really super cool.
Yeah, I think I've leaned more heavily on the men's side. I've always had trouble with women, but I think I've had I've had 4 of the top 5 men on, and like it was a great group. It was a nice group. There was no dickhead in there. Like there was no prick that's just going to ruin it. But I think like it was a nice group, and I think it was a nice like. Obviously, there's some things, like I remember people were giving out saying, "Oh, it's just a foregone conclusion. Like it's going to be Tia, it's going to be Matt. Who gives a fuck?" Like, But it is one of those things where you're like, I grew up with my dad saying like, I don't know, but you'll never understand. Like, you'll never know what it was like watching Ali in an interview or watching him fight, or you'll never know what it was like watching this happen or whatever. And like now I get to hold that over my kids.
Right.
Like, I think there was that epic kind of. Like, I know whatever happens, the documentary is going to be fucking hyper emotional. Like, because with the benefit of hindsight as well, where you're kind of like, oh my God, and he said this thing at this time, and now it makes sense. But like, even hearing him interviewed, I don't think this was his intention. I think he said, I remember he brought it up in that podcast, actually. He was like, Nicole asked me about next year, and he's like, oh, I don't know, I need to go and talk to Sammy about it or whatever, and everyone jumped on it, but he was like, I fucking said that last year and no one commented. He was like, the first couple of years I felt like I needed to do that thing where it's like, when does training start for next year? It fucking starts tomorrow. And he was like, no, fucking doesn't. He was like, every year I take like a couple of weeks, go, relax, whatever. But yeah, obviously this time when we were watching the documentary, everything's going to be like, oh my God, you see the way he looked at Dave? I wonder, was that him telling him that?
Was that a sense of longing?
Yeah, the finger that he gave to Dave, was that him saying like, fuck you, I'm done? Is that his decision?
Right. Well, no, I was thinking about that last night too, man. Like as soon as I saw the retirement post, I
thought it was like, a joke.
Oh, I did too, because I saw it from Castro first. Well, actually, we were like riding back from Starbucks, and my wife was like, Castro just posted that Matt's retiring? And I was like, bullshit. And then it was everywhere, but I immediately remembered like that exact interview, because I edited some like recaps for the games this year, and there was this moment where Nikki is like, so like, what's the plan? And he was like, well, like we don't have a return flight booked, we're just gonna go like have some long life talks. And I was like, what is, in the moment you're like, what does that mean? But now I'm like, oh, that's what that means. Like but you're right, he has said something like that every year, but like, hindsight being 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh shit. Yeah. Hindsight's 2021. We have to change.
Oh my God, there's
now.
there's the movie name, Hindsight's 2020.
Right.
Actually, that's one of my episode names, so they'll have to pay me. Well, that's a common phrase. It probably is not copyright.
Nah, dude, get that trademarked really quick.
We had Ari Hurst on the other week, and your advert for your for the Fronings Mark II came up. Like, that's how I got in touch with you originally. So I saw that that video, the Christmas themed video, and I don't know, I'm not sure. Someone, I don't know, did she put it up and tagged you, or someone put it up and tagged you in it? And
I think she tagged like the whole team.
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And I like clicked in, and I was watching the video.
I ask myself that same question every morning.
I was like, this is pretty funny. Like, But yeah, I messaged you after that. Like, how did that come about? The I guess the idea, like whose idea was it? How did it happen? And was it difficult to do?
Yeah, I started doing some work for Mayhem towards like the middle of last year. Um like in the middle of like lockdowns and everything, like they had a lot of things that they wanted to push that they could do locally.
Is
So
that
I
through
would
Rory then? Is he like, I know a guy?
Yes sir, yeah,
Yeah.
like I had worked with Roy before too, so it was like an easy relationship.
Mm.
But I was doing some stuff for Mayhem, and then it was Ari kind of came through that connection. But she was like, "Hey, we want to do this video to release Froning's new shoe. Like, what do you have any ideas?" And so I'm basically like sitting. I'm at the when she called, I'd like just finished filming a different level one in Texas, and I'm sitting in the parking lot, and suddenly, like, I'm like, I have to have ideas right now, you know, like. So I'm a verbal processor, so I was just like, well, let's just talk shit for a minute and see what happens. And so I was like, well, what if we did like a Christmas poem, you know, with like senior could read it, and it could just be really silly, like whatever. And so she was like, yo, that's great. Let's run it by their team. And then, you know, of course, like nobody wants to be the one doing the stupid thing, like while it feels stupid, you know, like when it's done and it's like funny and all put together, you're like, yeah, hell yeah, I did that. But in the meantime, like everybody's like, I have to wear a sleeveless sweater, you know, like and do what in front of where? So like they actually shot it all locally in Cookeville, and I wasn't a part of the production process at all. But so for my end for that sort of thing was like I came up with a silly idea. I helped like proofread a Christmas poem a few times, and which was so funny because like they have to, you know, like Reebok is a large company who has to make sure that like they're an international company. So like this silly Christmas poem that we're writing has to get run through their legal department.
Mm.
And then they're like, legal didn't approve this phrase, you know, like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know why, but I'm also like, I don't do business in China personally. So maybe it's offensive in China. And so then it, you know, kind of comes back to like, here is this footage of senior reading a poem, and like, it was so funny to me watching it as it was happening. But yeah, that's kind of how it came together in a really roundabout way, like mayhem through the spirit of Christmas, if you will.
Yeah. I think like I definitely hearing you talk about it there, I think I'm also like a verbal. I just kind of start is it is it Michael Scott that says sometimes I start talking, I don't even know what's gonna come out.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm like as well, where like I've had, you know, Rain are one of my sponsors, the energy drink. And they a couple of times they've been like, oh, we think we might do like a series, like would you like to do a series, 2 or 3 episodes or whatever? And I'm like, yep, cool. What do you want me to do it on? And they're like, oh, like whatever you want. Like what would you think? And the same thing where I'm kind of like, ugh, like right now. But like
Off the top of my head, this instant.
but like by and
Christmas
large,
poem.
I work really. In hindsight, I work really well in those scenarios. So
Right.
I started to bring that to other parts of my life where I just don't plan anything. And then
Right.
when I'm faced with a position of like, right, what are you going to do now? Like, I'm going to do this, and then it's like, oh, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
No, obviously it doesn't work out all the time, but like,
Well, no, dude, my counselor gave me this note from a book called The Artist's Way that was about how like the best art is made when you don't know what you're doing. Like when it's just like a natural flow out of you.
yeah.
And dude, you might be a verbal processor, but like you're really fucking good at it. You know, like like I don't know if you had a podcast before this one. Did
No,
you? No,
no,
it's your
no.
first one. I know you teach, so you're like in front of people. Um, but like even if you're verbal processing, like you do a great job of landing the plane. I think that's part of my problem is like I'll verbal process and it's like we're beginning our initial descent and like it
I'm
goes
on a
another
detour to
direction.
Miami.
Right. We're gonna land at a different airport than the one we originally intended.
But
And
like
you'll just decide you like it.
the way it damages me though is say like I had a call like 4 days ago with Rain, and they were like, oh, we want to do something, it needs to be done by March, so what would you think? And I was like, oh, the Open's in March, so we'll do something around that.
Right.
And I started talking, and then they emailed me later on and were like, that was a really good talk. Really, really love that idea. If you could flesh that out and send it back to us. And like, I was sitting beside my wife on the couch and I got the email and she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I can't remember anything I said. And then like, I didn't record the call. It was like on TV
Right.
or something. I didn't record it, but she was
Right.
like, you must remember something. And I was like, honestly, I bare bones is all I've got. I can't remember anything I said. But like, that's happened to me a couple of times where someone's like, that's really fucking good. What was that thing you said last week? That good idea you had last week? Is like, I don't know. Did someone else write it down? I didn't really take notes. Yeah. Is it nerve wracking then when it's, so obviously you've got the safety net of the rest of the media team at CrossFit. You've got the safety net of needing to pass things through certain channels. Then you got the safety net of Reebok, where like at some point Rory or Ari or someone is going to turn around and be like, no, Mike, that's a bit stupid. We can't do that. You need to do it this way. Or like legal department will turn around and block it or something. Is it
Right.
nerve wracking doing your own thing and putting it out there for people to look at when it's like your name is attached to it, when it's and nobody else's?
Right. It's gone from being like very nerve wracking experience to being like super, super freeing. Like, my wife generally like approves all my edits for me. Like I have her be like, I need you to watch this. And like, I'll give her like a list of what I want, like, does it suck? Is it funny? Like, is the timing weird? And did I say anything inappropriate? And then, she'll watch it and be like, well, here, she normally is like my typos first, like, here's all the things you spelled wrong because you didn't go to real college. But yeah, to some extent, when I first started doing them, I was like, I am terrified that there is not a system of review to make sure that this is okay before it gets out into the world. But as it progressed, it's become like, you know what? I did this thing this morning because I was nervous. I wrote "Be Who You Are" on a sheet of gaff tape. And I taped it beside my camera up here in case I got nervous today. That has been throughout the whole max effort process. It's like, I just want to be myself, and I want to like get to be myself for however long it takes to film the video. And then feel like when the video is done, what gets put into the world is me, not me pretending to be something that I'm not.
That's it though, because like the mask will slip eventually. So if right.
Right.
Like you can only hold up an impression for so long. Like I could have started episode 1 with an Australian accent,
right?
But like
I wouldn't have noticed.
Brandon Swan will tell you that pretty quickly my Australian turns into New Zealand, veers towards Pakistan, and then comes back to Ireland. So like it would have eventually slipped.
Right.
But like, I think that's, it sounds cheesy and it sounds corny, but like if you try and imitate, or if you try and mimic, or if you try and do something, like eventually you're going to be found out, where either you run out of ideas because you haven't had your own one yet, or the mask just slips and it's like, wait a minute, I thought you said you hated that, or you said before that whatever.
Right.
Obviously opinions can change, but I think
fundamentally, or maybe you just get burned out, like where you've been pretending to be something that you're not for so long that you just can't keep it up anymore, and then you just crumble from the inside.
Where Jesus, Dark, where where do you hope to go with it? Like, have you a long-term thing, or are you just kind of going to keep doing it until you don't like doing it?
Right. I'll stick to the original plan of seeing if just when I hate it, I'll just stop doing it. No, I don't know. I thought about that a lot. Like I have some longer term ideas. I think it would be super cool for it to be the only thing that I did, like to, stop filming on a GoPro maybe and raise the production value to like what my other work is, but like where it could be my, my sole source of like income and employment. But I also joke a lot that I'm not an influencer. Like I work for a living, and I don't want to become an influencer. I want to work for a living, like I was raised by blue collar people, and I intend to like keep some level of that in my life. And so I don't know, like I've said that when I finish like 10 videos that I would start reaching out to like episode sponsors maybe and say like, like, would you be interested in sponsoring this video moving forward? And I do have some other opportunities that are coming up where people have offered like affiliate links and stuff like that, where it could kind of start to like maybe generate some level of income. And I think that would be awesome, just to get to like have my own personal creative endeavor become like all that I do. But I don't know that I would ever be able to, like close the door on like I love making things. Like I believe wholeheartedly that I was put on the earth to make things. And so it would be tough for me to ever say that like if a cool story came along or a cool opportunity and somebody's like, hey, we want you to make this video, that would be like, no, that's okay. I make GoPro videos in my garage. Like I don't know that I would ever be able to like shut down or turn down like a creative opportunity that I was excited about.
Yeah, I guess it'd be nice to have the opportunity to be more selective, I guess, to be,
Sure.
To be able to turn something down that you're like,
right.
Maybe, and like only pick the ones that you're like, yeah, I definitely want to do that.
Right. Yeah, that would be awesome. It would be super cool. Like, and I'm very thankful. We are blessed in a lot of ways that I am able to like say no to some of the things that just really do not align with like the kind of work that I do. And I have not always been in that position, like very early on, I just had to say yes to everything. I can't remember who it is. It's like, I can't remember who the quote is. I attributed it to Ashton Kutcher one time, and someone told me that it was not Ashton's quote. But it was like opportunities often come disguised as hard work and are dressed in overalls. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that like opportunities that come along, it's easy to overlook them because more often than not, they look like you having to produce 100 podcast episodes entirely by yourself while working a full-time job with a teething baby and, in the middle of a fucking pandemic, but like you have chosen to do that because like you love it. It's what you want to do. So I have said yes to a lot of things in the past that I look back on and like, it would have been nice to say no to that. But like what I took from it, has made me what I am today. And so I appreciate those things at the same time.
Yeah. So CrossFit ring, they phone and they say, here's, I don't know how much it costs to make something. Here's X amount of money. Give us a documentary of someone in the realm. Who would you ring, or who would you phone, and why?
Just like my top idea right now.
Yeah, who would your ideal like muse be for a documentary?
Dude, I love Chandler Smith.
He's so good.
I love Chandler Smith.
God, I'm fucking desperate to talk to him.
Oh man, well, dude, he's about to be a civilian. He's about to have all the spare time in the world. I like.
He's so entertaining.
I love being. He's so entertaining, and he's like wise. I'm always like, every time I finish talking to him, I'm like, do you realize like what the things that you say? Like, are you aware of like the intelligence that comes out of you? It's like beyond his years. You know what I mean? And
I think it's because he seems haphazard as well. Like he comes across, he's kind of goofy, and he just kind of jumps around the place, and he's really high energy. So then when he starts talking, it's kind of juxtaposed to his energy, the fact that he's actually kind of stoic and considered in what he says.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to be able to follow Chandler through the entire game season. That would be incredible. And I think that there would be so much gain from that for like the community as a whole, and just like the insight that he provides, and his character and his example. But at the same time, I also like, so much of my job for the longest time was to completely neglect the CrossFit Games until I was at the CrossFit Games. Like that there are amazing things happening in the 14,000, 15,000 affiliates all around the world, with people from age ranges, like young and old, and like from every background and race and creed and gender. And that like, I've thought about that too. Like of how to tell that full story of how a community forms, globally. And that's a much bigger question, where I think we're above my film school pretend college pay grade on like was that like anthropology? So like I'm fascinated by that end too, but I think if you just like, depending on the day that you caught me on and how caffeinated I may or may not be, I think it would either come down to, can I follow Chandler for the whole game season, or do we start a full, or the entire world simultaneously? Yeah.
Can you imagine making up all those frames and getting Eric to sign them?
Oh, right. Will you sign off on my Do you like this picture that I drew? It's not what it's going to look like in the gym, but do you like this?
Yeah, that guy's in Antarctica. I've never been there, so I need to get that one in.
Oh,
Yeah.
bro, your episode with Hobart talking about Antarctica, he and I have talked about that so many times, and we missed our window just like, I was like by 4 months or something like that. It's heartbreaking. It was called CrossFit Deep Freeze, which is like the fucking coolest name for an affiliate in Antarctica. But the guy that was like running it, like left Antarctica because you don't stay there year round. And
he might go back.
Well, I've messaged, I found this dude on Facebook. I'm a very good lurker as part of what the nature of documentary work is. And I found this dude and I was like, hey man, like if you ever go back to Antarctica, like please let me know. CrossFit is like wants to come make a video about it. And I feel like the kind of person that like casually goes to Antarctica is, doesn't check their Facebook messages very often. So I never, he messaged me back and he was like, okay, cool. I'll keep you posted. And that was the end. Never heard back.
Yeah. Well, at least he didn't say never going to happen.
Yeah. I'm never going back to Antarctica and I'll never let you know if I do.
Look, we'll finish with a quick fire.
Give it to me.
So row or ski?
Row.
Americano or iced coffee?
Iced coffee. Florida's hot.
Bike or run?
I would run.
A snatch or clean?
Snatch.
Coach or camera?
Ooh, camera.
I was really happy with that question. I don't know why, but I just had a nice alliteration to it.
No, it feels right. Yeah.
Documentary or vlog?
Ooh, it's a quick fire documentary.
Yeah. I meant to ask, what's the story with your assault bike? Because you called it an assault bike, but it looks like
it's not, right? Yeah. It's like an old Schwinn air bike, I think. Like it was like one of those ones that was like at our gym and it was broken, and they were like, we're gonna throw this away. And I was like, well, can I try to fix it? So I essentially have to take the batteries out and put them back in before any use. And then if you pedal backwards for a second, the chain comes off. Which side note, one of my first travel jobs, I was filming with Froning, and he was like, you ever ridden an assault bike? And I was like, no, I haven't. And it was like, the same model that I have now, basically. But it was like correct for him to have it at the time that he had it. And it's no longer correct for me to have the one I have. And he was like, we're gonna do this 1 minute test. And I was like, cool. So it was like Froning, Sherwood. And I like rip on this thing at the time, like thinking I am, right? Like, ah. And I finished it and they were like, cool, man. Like, but you pedaled backwards for an entire minute. I was like, what the fuck? What have I done? And I was like, cool, great. Like, there's like negative calories on the screen.
Yeah. It's like they bring you out to the track next. It's like, right, we're going to run a lap and you just start going backwards.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks a million. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, dude. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And if anyone wants to check out, so it's Max Effort Reviews.
Yep. It's at Max Effort Reviews on Instagram. And I cannot remember what my URL is on YouTube, but the link is in the Max Effort Reviews bio.
There you go.